Hello, I'm Double Moses. Today we find ourselves far away from civilization and we're out here to do some science. And behind me you can see a small iron farm I've built up to help with what we're doing today. So the iron farm itself doesn't matter, but the reason it's here is because iron farms don't actually need a player nearby to operate. Of course, normally this farm will stop working once we leave the area, so our goal today is to build up a remote chunk loading machine that will keep this area loaded regardless of if we're nearby or not. So that means we can be off far away doing something else, and this place will still be pumping out iron. And to make this happen, we're going to have to think with portals. Now, when we throw an item into the portal, first up we're going to get a second or two lag spike while it searches for the portal on the other side. Then once the item goes through, it will load up that area in the nether for at least 15 seconds, and it also remembers that portal link for 15 seconds. So if we throw through another item before that nether area unloads, we don't get that big lag spike, and it also resets the 15-second timer. Now if we throw in an item every 14 seconds, we should be able to keep that area of the nether permanently loaded without causing too much extra lag. For the most part, this works the same way on the nether side as well. So if we can make a machine that creates a loop where the nether keeps the overworld loaded, and in turn the overworld keeps the nether loaded, in theory we should be able to keep our iron farm permanently loaded and running. The area that gets loaded is a 7x7 grid of chunks surrounding the portal. Now not all chunks are created equal, so the 3x3 green area in the center are entity processing chunks. Basically normal chunks that work as expected. That's the area that we're playing with today. The yellow area are lazy chunks or non-entity processing chunks. So redstone will work in this area, but anything entity based like mob AI will stop working, as well as item drops in water streams, they'll freeze as soon as they hit the chunk border. And if enough of them build up on the chunk border, when you come back and fully load the area, if there's enough of them there, they can lag out or crash the game. So make sure you don't send any items over that way. The orange area are extremely lazy chunks, or non-processing chunks. So nothing works in this area, no command blocks, redstone, entities, nothing happens. In fact, the only thing I can see that this area does that affects the rest of the game is that entities in this area will count towards their mob caps. Other than that, you can pretty much ignore the area. Now I've spent a few hours in creative and come up with a design that seems reliable. So the first thing to note is that we're going to be building both the overworld and nether side facing towards the east. Just makes item collection a bit easier, as when we fire an item into the right side of the portal, on the other side, they'll actually shoot out back towards us on the left side. First up, find the center chunk of the area that you want to load, and then build a 3 wide nether portal in the middle of it. Now this side of the portal is pretty simple. So like I said, facing east, we go into the right side, 2 packed dice, upward facing dropper, have an observer firing into the back of it, then just wall it off. Place down a bucket of water, and just place some sort of block over the dropper so that the items don't get spat out. Then we feed a dropper line into the side of the dropper, hopper line. So that hopper will be the one picking up the items from the nether side. And when we fire this observer, need to put some items in there, so just fill it up with some junk items. So when we fire the observer, item gets spit out, goes into the nether and loads it up. We're almost ready to do the nether side, we've just got to figure out the best place to put the portal. So if you pull up F3 and figure out the position of the middle bottom obsidian block, divide the X and Z values by 8 and keep the Y height the same. Go to the nether and build your 3 wide portal in that location. Doing that will just ensure that no other portals can interfere with the link. Now the nether side's a little bit trickier. Because distances in the overworld are 8 times what they are in the nether, if we send an item through here and then another one in a slightly different position, that's a big enough difference in the overworld that it actually has to recalculate the link, which is going to cause another big lag spike. So to get around that, we're going to need to carefully align the items so that they go through the portal in the exact same position every single time. Still pretty simple though. So once again, we start off facing east and put down 2 packed ice and then a non-sticky block there. So glazed terracotta or obsidian would work as well. Just any block there and then another non-sticky block up there. Then we get our droppers, one upwards facing, then one facing away from the portal. Then here we put a regular piston that'll push the item out. And over here we place a slime block. Ooh. And down here we grab a hopper, feed it into the bottom dropper, and then this hopper is the one that collects the items that come through. And then for the redstone we put just any solid block here, grab a repeater on 1, and then 2 repeaters on 4. Then we get another solid block and put it there. And a repeater on 3 here to fire the piston. Then we grab redstone, 1 there and then 1 on top of the block. Then a torch on the side of the block. And a sticky piston to retract the slime block. And just here to trigger the system, we put an observer. Fill the dropper with just any items. Then once again we place just a little block on top to stop the items from glitching out. And I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah. So when we trigger the observer, first thing that happens is the dropper fires an item away from the portal. That aligns it with the back wall. The slime block then retracts and the piston nudges the item to the edge of the ice path. Then once it's in place, we can safely fire it through the portal. Now all we need to do is add in the triggering system. So there's 2 ways to do it. We can either have a clock on both sides firing every 14 seconds. Well, the way I'm going to try to do it is to have a clock on this side, and then when the overworld receives an item, it's just going to shoot an item right back. That should work fine as long as the item collection is 100%, which I'm pretty sure it is. So simple, stick a redstone block in front of the observer, and we just build up a standard etho hopper clock. So 2 sticky pistons, and redstone dust. Then we just need any standard solid block, 2 comparators, then 2 hoppers facing into each other. I'm pretty sure it's 36 items. So every time the redstone block moves, that's going to trigger the observer. Then we can just add an on and off switch by placing a solid block next to one of the hoppers, a lever next to the other hopper, and then let's just stick a torch up here and a lamp on top. So when we power the lever, that's just going to freeze the hoppers and pause the system. The overworld side is really simple. If you want to build up to the clock, you just place the redstone block in front of the observer, but the way we're going to do it, stick a solid block next to the hopper, comparator, so the comparator can read the hopper through the block, and we just put a sticky piston here. And that's it. Oh god. Oh god. Okay, now that we're not on fire, when an item goes into the hopper, that pushes out the observer and fires an item out. I almost overlooked something very important, and that's the hostile mobs in the area. So if we go through to the Nether, and then load up the overworld and check the mob cap, so we can see that there's currently 41 mobs loaded in the overworld. So if we keep this area loaded and then we go off and use one of our hostile mob farms, any of the mobs in the lazy chunks in the loaded area, they're not going to despawn, and they're just going to hang around hogging up the mob cap and ruining our rates. So there are ways to use this to our advantage, but for today, we just want to get rid of them. So the first way we can handle it is by going through all the caves in the 7x7 area, lighting them up so that no mobs spawn in that area. But that's really boring, so I gave up on that after a few minutes and went with option B, which is despawning the mobs before we leave. Now we're up at about Y220, far up enough off the ground so that all the mobs down there should have despawned. So now if we go into the Nether, we check our mob caps, it should come up at 0. Excellent. Alright, we're ready to give this a test. So you can see on the right, I've set up a scoreboard that's just going to keep track of how long each area has been loaded. And I've got the spawn chunks there as a reference as well. So we'll start the chunk loading machine. Now we should get a few lag spikes as it starts the connection. Hopefully the item will come through. Alright, it's all working. Now I'm just going to reset the scoreboard with this button. And now I'm going to go off for a play for a while. And hopefully when I come back in a few hours, everything's still working. Alright, we're back. As you can see on the scoreboard, we've just hit 1 million ticks loaded, which is around 13 or 14 hours. So left the game on overnight, played around for a bit in the morning, and everything's still in sync with the spawn chunks. So it looks like the areas we loaded didn't have any issues. So I'm happy to call this experiment a complete success. Okay, so I've completely forgotten where I built the chunk loader. Alright, 15 minutes later, here we are. We'll just check out the drops. Alright. So what's that? 13? Sounds right. Cool, it's all good. Now of course, there are other things besides iron farms we can use this for. Things like hostile mob farms or anything that rely on natural crop growth like villager carrot or kelp farms won't work, as they require the player nearby for stuff to happen. But things like furnace arrays, cobblestone generators, sorting systems are all good. I'm pretty sure the zero tick farm should work as well. Actually I might check that. Okay, zero ticks do work, so you can have something like a furnace XP array loaded up and smelting XP while you're out doing stuff. Just with anything prone to breaking if it gets unloaded, like this thing here, make sure you turn on the portal loader before you turn on the machine so it doesn't get unloaded and break when you leave the area through the portal. Now for the future, this exact setup does not work in the current 1.15 snapshots. Nether portals will still load up the area when you throw an item through, but when you throw a second item through, it doesn't refresh the portal's unloading countdown, so you can't just use this portal to keep the Nether permanently loaded. However, I've spent maybe a few minutes playing around in the snapshot and I'm pretty sure I've found a way around it. It's actually pretty similar to what we've done today, just with a few minor modifications. Still should take less than 10 minutes to build and set up. So if nothing changes, I should have an updated version ready to go when 1.15 releases. Last thing to note is that these chunks won't stay loaded if you restart the game or server, just because the game doesn't reload areas that were portal loaded at the time it was shut down. So anytime you restart, you just have to come by and start it up again and it's all good. Alright, that's probably it. Like always, world download and Lightmatica schematic in the description. I'll have a material list in there for all the machine variants as well. So doing this has got me really interested in the possibilities with portals, especially with 1.15 reducing portal lag as well as doing a few other cool things. I think we're going to see a lot of really interesting stuff using nether portals once the update hits. So, thank you very much for watching. Have a good one. See you later.